Hi friends, I'm David LaMotte. I'm the former Program Associate for Peace at the North Carolina Council of Churches and now do some consulting on peace and justice issues with the Council. Blessings to you in these strange and turbulent times. I hope you and yours are well. And I hope you're taking the opportunity to find joy and accept it fully when you encounter it. I've been thinking a lot about the idea that compassion and joy are not necessarily in contrast, although they can seem like they're in tension. Compassion literally means to suffer together, to take on another's suffering in order to lessen it. And that's a beautiful thing, and we are called to compassion, and we are also called to joy. And if we cannot be joyful if someone is suffering, then all joy is wiped from history. And I don't think that's what God wants for us. So allow yourself to feel all that you're feeling these days, the entire spectrum, because it's all real and all of it matters. My friends at the Council asked me if I would do a devotion today, and I was thinking about what text to bring in this particular moment. The Bible has a lot to say to us about the moment we're living in. This is not a collection of writings about times that were easy. And so, what text to go to? So many options. In the end, I was thinking about the fact that in a moment of crisis like this, it's natural as a human being to have conflicting tendencies. One, to kind of run away and hide, to defend yourself. As a neighbor of mine said recently, he stocked up on ammo. And then there is the other tendency, which is to reach out to your community and to look for solace and support in each other. Those are both natural, but I really want to lean toward the latter one because I think it's where Jesus was deeply calling us. And so what I found was that I wanted to go to this very central text in the New Testament because the question is not, are those things natural and forgivable? The question is, what do I want to nourish? What do I want to lean toward? And I think this well-known text speaks to that. It's in Matthew 22, verses 34 through 40. When the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and all the prophets." I'm wondering why we don't hold that verse up at football games. When they asked Jesus, what's the main thing? What's the greatest commandment? What's the heart of it all? He did a very unusual thing for Jesus. Usually when you asked him questions, he said, well, let me tell you a story. And then he told you some confusing story and walked away and left you to think about it. Or he said, well, what do you think? And he does that, in fact, in another version of the Great Commandment and another of the Gospels. But in this one, he just answers the question. Here's the main thing. And this other thing that's kind of very much like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. He gave us these two commandments, and then ended that particular passage by saying, all the law and all the prophets hang on these two. In other words, everything you have ever been taught, everything you've experienced, everything you think you know about faithfulness needs to be filtered through these two. All the law and all the prophets hang on these two. So our biggest job, friends, is to love each other. Whether times are hard and scary or beautiful and joyful, our job is to love each other. Over in the Luke version of the Great Commandment, there's a follow-up question, which is, who is my neighbor? When Jesus says, love your neighbor, there are two obvious questions there. One of them is, who's my neighbor? And the other one is, what do you mean by love exactly? And sometimes I wished that the lawyer had asked that other question. What do you mean by love? Because I would have loved to have heard Jesus' answer to that question. But I think we can tell by the answer that he gave, which is the Good Samaritan story, well-loved and well-known Good Samaritan story, we can tell that the answer to what do you mean by love might well have been the same story. The Good Samaritan story shows that as well, because it's pretty clear that Jesus is not talking about a warm, fuzzy feeling when he's talking about love. He's talking about how we treat each other, how we care for each other. We all do that imperfectly, and this is a time to be gentle with ourselves as well as each other. It's a time to practice a little bit of extra grace, because everybody is carrying so much stress. But when we're asked to love each other, to love ourselves and to love each other, that's about how we care for each other in tangible ways as well as emotional ways. So blessings, friends, in these strange times. Be good to yourselves and be good to the people around you. This is one of the 2 greatest commandments according to Jesus. Love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, all your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Blessings.